Welcome, Wargamers, to the Teasers of the Future of the Mortal Realms, because today we are talking about all of the different, ending slides. I kind of described it as the very many endings of Lord of the Rings, where it just kind of keeps having closing shot after closing shot, and you just kind of get that feeling after the fourth one of, like, end the movie or don't. I just want to leave. Well, basically, Book 3 of the Dawnbringers campaign series, The Long Hunt, did this exact thing, and the videos were getting a little long earlier in the week, and there's a lot of really fun tidbits that they threw out at the end here with these little, like, sidebars that I wanted to talk about, because some of them have nothing to do with the stuff that was in this particular tale of the Twin-Tailed Crusade, but they set up stuff that might be in the next one. Now, if you want to get caught up and hear these theories or whatever, I have a link in the description down below to the playlist. Go get caught up with the Dawnbringers campaign series, and I'll be here for you. There's a ton of postscript stories here, and so we're going to go through each one of them and speculate wildly, because it's fun. Really quickly, I just want to throw up here, if you're interested in this campaign series or Age of Sigmar or really anything, please consider using one of my affiliate links in the description down below. I recently started a link tree where you can see all the discounts that are provided by retailers that I have affiliate sets up for. Meaning if you use these, not only do you save money, but part of that sale goes directly into my tip jar to support me, my wife, our cats, the whole channel, and I could not be more thankful to each and every one of you who uses those links. I also want to say, if you're interested in Age of Sigmar content, whether it's tactics, reviews, or whatever, go check out Goonhammer. They got you online for a whole bunch of great content relating to pretty much any wargame under the sun. Okay, friends, let's do our notes at the end here, breakdown. So, there was some of them are related to the story of the Long Hunt, some of them are not, and I'll kind of pull attention to which ones are. So we start off with one that is Gobsprakk. If you don't know, Gobsprakk is the named character of the Cruel Boys. He's like the leader on Volcha, the shaman leader on Volcha, and he's a very interesting character. His motivations are very unclear. Up until this point, he has been the only character who can understand Kragnos. I don't know if Gorka Morka put a babblefish in each of their ears that's just tuned to each other or what, but when Kragnos broke out of his mountain, it seems that Gobsprakk is able to intuit what he is saying, feeling, and that kind of stuff, but nobody else can. So he's kind of the interpreter, in addition to a lesser warlord. And we definitely got the sense in this book that Gobsprakk has his own motivations. Before, I didn't feel like it was as clear. It seemed like he was just very happy to serve Kragnos, which I don't think that that wouldn't make sense. But this book really implies that there's more going on. He wanted Kragnos gone. And it kind of frames his whole participation in this story as, okay, were you just using Kragnos to get to Ghyran? And then you wanted him away so that you could do whatever you wanted, which would kind of make me think that the Cruel Boys were going to be featured heavily in the next arc of the story. Or did you want him gone so that you can slink back to the shadows, and then Games Workshop could use that as an impetus for, why Kragnos is in X place, and maybe why, Chaos is now ascendant again, or, whatever they want to do for the next major story arc there. The idea of, destroying remnants of Kragnos' people I thought was particularly malicious and mean, but it does paint Gobsprakk as being, a very conniving character, and I like that. That's really the only resolution we get for Kragnos and Gobsprakk at this moment. It just definitely seems that he got the outcome that he wanted. Kragnos is now in Ghyran. They are as well, but now Kragnos is on his own in a trap by the forces of order, and to our knowledge, as far as where the story left off, the Cruel Boys, they're getting shot at by cannons, but, they're not, destroyed or anything. They're still an entity on themselves. So that's a note that we could go down, a road that we can go down, rather, in the next book. There's also a letter to a Lord Imperatant. So this is just kind of attached here at the end of the book. It is to a Lord Imperatant from a Stormcast Eternal leader, and he's basically reporting in a bunch of strange things that happened in Akshi. The writer of this letter says that, here we were, my band of Stormcasts, we're fighting a Tzeentch warband, and we're doing okay, but then this guy on a dragon, Ionis Cryptborn of all people, if you can believe that hero, he flies in to aid us. The fighting goes down. Of course, with Ionis' reinforcements and stuff like that, it's easily won at this point. And then Ionis Cryptborn left when the fight was over. They were like, hey, we saw you guys in trouble. We just wanted to help you out. The overall tone of this letter is very positive of like, we were ambushed, but we have, thanks Sigmar, we have friends in high places. But the letter ends with this very strange little note that I wanted to share with you. This Stormcast Eternal leader, who's writing to his Lord Imperator, says, there are 9 souls that are unaccounted for. That is to say, these troops are missing, but they didn't arc back to Azir, and it has nothing to do with the Cursed Skies thing. I don't know how he intuits that, but basically that's the idea of the letter. So it's both good news and a weird notification. Now, let's talk about this for a second. Ionis Cryptborn. I like him, but he's a creepy dude. He has this aura of death all around him all the time. He's basically a Stormcast chaplain. And he's changed a lot since we saw him. Like I said, I'm going to do a dedicated video on Ionis. But we haven't seen the full revelation of why he's doing this quite yet. If you remember, when he flew in to save Vandus, he did the exact same thing. Flew into a battle that was already hopping, or about to start, and absolutely flips the tide. But then when he leaves, he takes people with him. This is an interesting idea. So with Vandus, he showed him the writ and said, I have authority to take whoever I want. But in this other story, where it's not his friend that he's taking people from, it's more secretive. But the same story happened twice. Stormcast were fighting, Ionis flies in, fights, and takes the best and brightest or whatever, takes a few Stormcasts with him. But now there's deception in it, which quite frankly just makes it interesting. And so that is our plot point. I would love to hear in the comments down below what you think this means. In my mind, I am so curious if the Tzeentch Warband has anything to do with it. And by that I mean in AOS 1.0, in Chamon, there was actually a fortification that if a Stormcast died near it, it would suck their soul into the wall and like power the fort. So is it about the Tzeentch Warband doing that, or is it about Ionis doing something like that? Maybe as Stormcast dies, he's collecting them instead of letting them go back to Azir. Very cool stuff. I'd love to hear all the theories down below. We now zap to a new, again, I'm telling you, there's a whole bunch of endings to this story. Here's the next postscript story we got. Astria Soulbright, who's just like the most left field character. This is the name character on Dracoline or whatever, like the Dragon Cats. She steps into Ghyran from Shyish with her Stormcast chamber along with her. And as they explore this area immediately outside of this realm gate, they fail to see that they are being watched by maddened eyes. And that's really the only clue that we get. So of course I'm thinking Flesh Eater Courts. I mean, since this publication, Games Workshop has been very clear, Flesh Eater Courts are coming. They even showed us that new sweet model with wings. I love it. And while the obvious teaser for this story is that the Flesh Eater Courts are coming, right? Don't need to dwell on that one. I find it interesting that Astria Soulbright, of all characters, is here. Now, of course, she's a Hammer of Sigmar, so having any kind of mission related to Ghyran or actually makes sense. Hammer Hall's in both of them. That's like their big city. But for her to be recalled from her mission in Shyish is interesting because her whole job, if you don't know Astria Soulbright, her mission in life is to study death and resurrection. So she goes to Shyish to like hunt vampires to learn more about their secrets of immortality. She'll go mess around in like dungeons full of night haunt to go like learn about what persists their souls and their minds to the mortal realms, like all these kinds of things. So why is a death expert in Ghyran? While I don't know, and I'm very curious to learn about the trail that brought her here, she's on the money. I mean, there's a Flesh Eater court, court, I guess, right around her, surrounding her when the story ends. But basically, I want to know the story of what the path of devastation that this court did that caught her specific attention. I would love to know that story, and I'm excited to hear about it. And honestly, I think with that, have they touched every single named character that the Stormcast Eternals have? Like outside of like special holiday models. But, with the exception of Gardas, all their named characters are like keyword locked to Hammers of Sigmar, which is Hammer Hall, is their Stormkeep. But it's just like, man, they're really bringing everybody into this, and I love it. Okay, next sidebar is we actually get a tiny little prelude to the next story coming up in the series. Dawners, as they're called on these Dawnbringer crusades. Can I just say, I think that's a terribly unfortunate name. As an American, I always just think of the Donner Party. So to have your whole group of like thousands of people in two different directions called Dawners, it trips a few wires. But our little foreshadow here is that their Deepkin quote-unquote allies that they have now use their magics to wipe the minds of the cities of Sigmar people just a little. If you don't know, the Deepkin can basically erase your short-term memory so that their existence can remain hidden. And they basically were like, you guys have been through a lot, so let's just make you forget like the last week. And it just kind of eases the soul a little bit. I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. That's some eternal sunshine of the spotless mind kind of stuff right there. And we also pan over to Korgus Kull, who is debating an assault. And that's what I'm saying. These are like super tiny micro entries. It is Korgus Kull debating on if he should go attack a particular settlement, but then he decides to focus on something greater, but what that is unclear. My guess from the context of the story is he is resuming his quest for, demonhood, becoming a demon prince. Because just as Vandus has been obsessed with Korgus Kull this whole time, Korgus Kull has been obsessed with the fact that Vandus denied him his rightful place at his, pyramid of skulls that he had built. So Korgus Kull is like confirmed to be an active player in the story, and I don't see any reason to think he won't be in the next book with how heavily they've talked about him, his position, what he wants to do here. We also see that the Ghyran Crusade is able to get some rest finally. The Sylvaneth allies that are with them depart for the most part. I mean, there's still some Sylvaneth along with them, but that whole Belthanos arm of the army that came in to meet up with them and save them, they basically split. They were like, my job's not done. We're going Gorger hunting. I'm Kernhoth's boy. I'm the spirit of the hunt. I'm going to go find me some Gorgers. And that's basically what they do. The crusade makes it to its next outpost, which is strangely abandoned. But nothing was taken. And there on the wall are written praises to someone called the Summer King. And the Dawners follow in the direction of the footsteps leading away. Okay, that's a lot of endings. You know what I mean? Now that I've listed them all out there, do you see what I mean about the Lord of the Rings comparison, where it's just constant? Like any one of these could have been the final little text, but you just kind of kept going. So let's talk about why this is cool, or really probably a more accurate translation of that is, what does this get me excited for? Well, for one, I like the idea that the characters that were part of Kragnos' story, so Alariel, Croak, the two dragons, Kragnos himself, and Gobsprak, I love that they were all in the same story together. It would have been very annoying to have like Kragnos in one and then Alariel in the other, and have to kind of patch their two responses to one another in, across books. This was short and brief. She saw what was coming. They're like, we need a trap. You two, pointing to the dragons, deal with your garbage. I am busy. And then everything is just, a result of them trying to do that. It just so happened that the crusade was walking in the area to be the perfect bait. So as far as my disdain of things coming from completely left field, this is not as egregious to me as the Deepkin in the last book. Or, sorry, the last story regarding the Aqshy Crusade. Because at least this one, at the beginning of the book, and I think a preview at the end of the last one, it was set up that Kragnos was going to be coming into Ghyran, so it just didn't feel crazy. And I liked his fight scenes. Him pinning Krondys by the throat against the wall felt like probably the most accurate battle report that Games Workshop's ever put out. Whatever's going on with Ionis Cryptborn has me very interested, because he has been a great insight into, I guess, the decay or the devolvement of Stormcast. So he was really, truly the first Stormcast to have a flaw. When we were introduced to Age of Sigmar 1.0 and the Stormcast came down, a accurate and I think rightful problem that people had with it is that there were no consequences, because the Stormcast would just be remade and reborn, and when the game launched, things like flaws weren't really talked about. But they existed, sort of. Ionis Cryptborn, whenever he would die and get reforged, he would have terrible nightmares of a dark figure who's constantly clawing at his soul. We get the idea that that's Nagash, for Ionis's vision specifically. So even when all the other Stormcast were, golden, glistening, perfect boys, he always had an edge that there's something not right about Ionis. The idea of him taking souls is a very cool one. I'm curious if that's going to turn into any kind of mechanical gameplay. Like, what if instead of Stormcasts blowing up and going to the sky, what if instead, if you had a relictor of some kind, they could absorb the soul and then use it as a buff? So like you had to have something die to have a 1-to-1 exchange for a buff. I think that could be really, really cool. If nothing else, it certainly fits narratively with the chaplaincy of the Stormcast Eternals equivalent, I guess. I'm just excited to see Astria Soulbright moving into other parts of this wrap-up here. I like her as a character. I like the idea of Stormcast having a mission. So like Neve Blacktalon, right? What's your job? I am the God King's assassin. You unleash the dogs on someone, right? That's Neve Blacktalon. With Astria, it's research. She wants to know everything there is to know about the idea of death. And basically all this research funnels into her trying to undo or at least freeze Stormcast Eternal flaws. So no one gets worse. And hopefully, ideally, if possible, we can make the broken people better. Reverse what's been done. So bringing that motivation into this story is a very interesting one, especially knowing that Flesh Eater Courts are going to be an integral part of this. Because at that point, we're not just talking about the relationship of life and death, which the Flesh Eater Courts also, I feel, are a good representation of that struggle and that dichotomy, but also of perception and reality. And it's like, hey, what fun two themes can you throw together? That sounds good. And beyond that, there's nothing else besides, I was a little bit bummed to see Belthanos come and go in a single book, but he was a really cool character. I'd love to see more stories that involve him later. And the reoccurring thing that Korgus Kull is coming back has me, again, excited. I mentioned that in my videos on the Actually side of the Crusade here. But I'm just pumped to know that these characters I like are coming back. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. What do you see coming down the pipeline? What is your thoughts and expectations? Let's take Flesh Eater Courts off the table. That's already a given. We know that. Dazzle me with ideas, people. Let me know what your thoughts are down below, and I'll catch you there. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and happy wargaming.